Okay. The 2025 Formula One season is done. It is officially over. The final champagne has been sprayed, the trophies are polished, and you know what? All the speculation is finished. We've got 24 races of hard data. It all came down to Abu Dhabi, and we are here to pull out the undisputed, brutal facts.
That's exactly right. And for you listening, Abu Dhabi wasn't just another race. It wasn't just the end. It was the ultimate stress test for the whole year. It summarized everything: the genius, the absolute catastrophe, and I think the silent cost of progress. So our mission today in this deep dive is to get into that raw, unfiltered material and find the lessons that actually matter for 2026.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this. We have to start with what might be the most exciting, almost frightening fact to come out of that finale. Fernando Alonso, he remains an absolute beast.
It's the first thing we have to talk about, maybe the most important piece of knowledge we walked away with. We saw him in Abu Dhabi just holding on to sixth position, a truly masterful drive. And it was purely through expertise, not raw car speed. His team wasn't at its best, but he delivered a peak performance.
And this is a guy who's been saying for weeks, I want the season to be done. I want to be on the beach. So how does someone like that still find the will to put in the kind of maximum sustained effort when the season is basically settled?
Well, the commitment is it's ingrained in him. But the strategy, that's what we really need to focus on. Esteban Ocon, his old rival, even mentioned after the race that Alonso is still using these mid-race tricks. And they are so crucial. We're not talking about just little adjustments to the brake balance.
Okay, so what are these tricks? Give us the detail here.
We're talking about modulating the engine mapping in real time. It's about saving that critical battery boost, the ERS, saving it in specific corners where he just knows he's safe from being overtaken, but then deploying it perfectly where he's most vulnerable. He's conserving tires when everyone else is pushing. Then, bam! He unleashes speed right when the car behind thinks it's found a weakness. It feels almost computer-aided.
So it's pure strategy, high-level, high-speed strategy, not just raw talent with the steering wheel. This sounds like an advantage that goes way beyond the 2025 car.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this unique skill set, what we call this high internal CPU, that's the most critical lesson for the new era in 2026. The new regulations mean a totally different, way more complex energy management system. You'll have less aero, so drivers have to rely more on that electrical power, on finding that perfect blend of grip, braking, and energy conservation.
Meaning the driver who can figure out that strategic puzzle fastest, who finds the trick first, basically wins the rule change lottery.
Precisely. The whole grid will be chasing the team that figures that out first. And all the data suggests the driver best equipped to exploit it is Alonso. And to back this up, we keep hearing these persistent rumors from the paddock that aerodynamically, the Aston Martin team, his team for the new rules, gives people fear for the coming year. Their 2025 car was a huge step, and the anticipation for what they do in 2026 is massive.
Wow. So you've got the ideal pilot, the fastest thinking driver on the grid, already set up with a team that's scaring the competition before a wheel has even turned. That is a massive opportunity for Aston Martin, and honestly, it's a Christmas gift for racing fans who want to see the old master back on top. And if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to the Deep Dive on the DRS Zone channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more F1 content and analysis. We are just getting started.
Now, before we move on to one of the biggest dramas of the finale, we need to be clear. This segment, where we're analyzing performance gaps and personnel moves inside the teams, is part of our news coverage of recent F1 events.
Absolutely. Okay. Now we have to shift from that ageless genius to the unbeautiful things we learned. Let's talk about the catastrophic failure of Ferrari. We have to hammer this home. The truly staggering, just demoralizing difference between the champion team and the Scuderia.
Ferrari. The collapse is, mathematically, it's shocking.
The numbers are brutal, and you need to hear them. You need to feel them. The gap between the champion team's points and Ferrari's 435 points was a factor of 31 times. 31. How does a powerhouse like that end the season having scored 31 times fewer points than the winner?
It's an authentic drama, and it's rooted in a fundamental institutional failure. But despite that massive gap, the data shows Charles Leclerc drove like an authentic lion in Abu Dhabi. He really did. He was pushing that dreadful SF25 like he'd stolen it, just squeezing every last drop of performance out of it.
He was trying to paper over the cracks, wasn't he? The SF25 was terrible from the start, but the real failure was that it just couldn't evolve.
Exactly. Key modifications, the ones planned for mid-season, I'm talking major August suspension updates, they simply failed. They delivered no tangible benefit. So it was a complete defeat, not just on the track, but in the factory development race. But Leclerc's performance, as you said, was exceptional, which almost makes the team's failure even more tragic.
And this is where the internal conflict just shines a spotlight on the team's core problems. Just look at the head-to-head stats against his teammate this year. Leclerc completely obliterated him. 19-5 in qualifying, 18-3 in race finishes, and a massive 7-0 on podiums. That's not a head-to-head. That's a declaration of war on his own team's failure to deliver.
So this raises the big question, why? Why did this happen? The official line from the team is that they shifted development early to 2026 to get a head start.
But wait a minute, isn't that just a convenient excuse for panicked, poor management? If you really shifted to 2026, why did you spend a huge chunk of your budget on those August modifications that spectacularly failed? You can't have it both ways.
You've hit the nail on the head. The failure of those mods suggests that the shift to 2026 line is just masking a deeper, more immediate rot. And that rot is personnel. We've seen a quiet exodus. They lost key people, key aero staff like Enrico Cardile, engine people like Zimmerman. Both highly experienced guys.
And crucially, no big names came in over the summer to fill those gaps.
Which points directly to a management blockage. But the deepest problem is cultural. And it's historical. Ferrari, historically, refuses to listen to its champion drivers. It's a kind of institutional arrogance. Think back to that old story with Maurizio Arrivabene telling Sebastian Vettel to basically just drive and leave the thinking to the team.
That same feeling seems to be back, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That the driver is just a pair of hands to execute commands, not a partner in the technical direction.
Absolutely. The problem isn't just bad engineering, it's bad listening. The atmosphere there isn't paralysis by analysis, which you sometimes see. It's paralysis by fear. A fear of challenging authority, a fear of failure that leads to conservative, ineffective decisions, and in the end, an inability to adapt when a design is just fundamentally wrong.
And it's so hard to recover from that kind of cultural problem, even with a big rule change coming up, because the core structure that decides how to spend the money is just broken. That is a huge lesson for the new year.
It is a huge one.
Right. Let's change focus completely. Let's look at two different lessons, one on development and one on strategy. First, the reality of the F1 business class and how the budget cap is, well, maybe just a suggestion for the biggest players.
What's so fascinating here is that even with this supposed budget cap, money still talks. The big players find the loopholes. We saw Mercedes and Ferrari in Abu Dhabi with their test mule cars for the new regulations. Now, for those of you less technical, a mule car is basically a heavily modified current car that's just used for testing new parts. In this case, 2026 parts.
And what were they testing that was so special?
They had these incredibly advanced mobile aerodynamic devices. We're talking hydraulic or pneumatic systems that could be controlled from the cockpit with a simple button. Active components that let them change the car's aero profile on the fly. This just shows massive financial flexibility. They had the resources to start developing these advanced test cars early and to keep finding ways around the cap.
So the big teams are basically saying, we have the money, we have the pasta, and we will find the gray areas.
That's the translation, yes, but. And this is a big but. Early spending doesn't automatically mean success. This is where we need to remember the BMW team back in 2009.
Right, the team that basically threw away their 2008 season to focus entirely on the new rules for 2009.
Precisely. They were the first ones on track with a car that showed the new wide, low wings. They spent a fortune, developed it first, and the car was terribly slow because they locked themselves into one interpretation of the rules before anyone else. The team folded within a year. The lesson is still there. Early money gives you flexibility, but it doesn't guarantee you found the right technical solution.
A perfect warning. Okay, now shifting to strategic genius. Let's talk about McLaren. For years, they were the biggest strategic blunderers on the entire grid. In Abu Dhabi, they showed they finally grew up.
They executed a masterful strategic checkmate. It was beautiful, really, in its cold calculation. They ran two parallel strategies for Lando and for Piastri. Piastri's hard tire start gave him an outside chance to win if things fell his way, sure. But his main job, his strategic role, was simple. Extend his stint just long enough to absolutely ruin the championship leader's two-stop window.
It was a checkmate, designed to make sure that neither Lando nor Piastri were hurt by it, but crucially, to deny their rival an easy path to victory. It was ruthless.
And it was done with no shouting, no public arguments. It proved that the team that historically threw away so many points on strategy was now cold, surgical, and effective right when the pressure was highest.
And that growth wasn't just on the pit wall, it was in the cockpit, too. We saw Lando Norris in this newfound champion mode.
Absolutely. The way he made that suicidal but ultimately successful pass on Yuki Tsunoda. It wasn't just aggressive. It was an act of cold self-assurance. He was operating in champion mode. He was betting his rival wouldn't dare interfere with the battle for the top spot. Lando finally shed those chains of self-doubt. He showed us the determined, cold-blooded driver we all knew was in there. That's maturity, and it bodes incredibly well for them.
That's the difference, isn't it? Not just having the fast car, but having the fast brain in the cockpit and the cold brain on the pit wall. Okay, finally, we have to introduce the last and maybe the most bitter lesson from the end of this season. F1 is forgetting its history in its rush toward the future.
This is a philosophical gut punch, it really is, and the disparity is just jarring. Think about the level of immediate hype we saw for one leaked photo of Valtteri Bottas with the new Cadillac test mule. Instant global reaction, future king hype.
Right. New money, new American name, immediate coverage.
And yet, just days before, there was absolute silence. A total lack of tribute for the Renault mechanics blowing up a final engine at their base in Viry-Châtillon. Renault has been a key part of F1 since 1977. They led the 2014 turbo hybrid revival, and they got nothing. No official homage.
That lack of recognition, it connects directly to the independent spirit of the sport, too. We saw the same lack of tribute for the Sauber team crossing the finish line for the last time under that iconic name.
Precisely. The journalist Luis Vasconcelos did this fantastic interview with Peter Sauber himself, the authentic, dream-driven founder who built that team on sheer genius and passion. He said he absolutely had to be there for that final crossing. His story is the story of the privateers, and the paddock just barely acknowledged it.
So if we step back, what does this trend really tell us about the sport we follow?
Look, F1 is fundamentally a major marketing department now. We all accept that. But when the paddock itself, the people inside the sport, forgets its own history, forgets the creativity, the genius, the sheer hard work of thousands of people in places like Viry-Châtillon or Hinwil, it becomes an oblivious Formula One.
It's the sad farewell of these European engineering giants. Sauber leaving the grid by name, Renault winding down its engine business. It highlights Europe losing its cultural and technical weight in the sport, making way for the new names like Cadillac and Andretti.
And if we're celebrating the king is dead, long live the king, before the new engine has even roared, are we sacrificing the depth and institutional memory that the sport needs for just quick, shallow hype? We have to remember that where F1 comes from, the garage geniuses, the independent spirit, that dictates what it can truly become.
We've covered genius, financial drama, strategic checkmates, and cultural betrayal. This season finale gave us more lessons than the last 23 races combined.
So take this knowledge and challenge the narratives you read in the off-season.
And we leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over. With so much focus on the new, what history are you afraid F1 will forget next? Make sure you follow our deep dive into F1 on all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We'll be back soon with more insights to get you through the long winter break.